Here we are back with another vintage Mac video. No, I know it's not that. This is another interesting computer from my educational past. At least this particular design, probably not this particular model. Actually, certainly not this particular model, because this is the home version of this. You can see there's a Macintosh Performa. This particular one is a 5215 CD, which differs only in software, at least as far as I know, and maybe the hard drive size for the original built-in hard drive, or the original included hard drive, from the 5200 CD, which itself is the home version of the Power Macintosh 5275LC, which was the original system that was built into this case. 5200 and also the 5300, which later on was replaced with the 5260 and the 5400, and then on to the 5500, that all shared this same basic chassis design. The 5200s, such as this, are well known for being a road apple. They're not a very good design. They're basically an old Motorola design that Apple took the logic board from. In fact, they were basically that over there. The LC500 was basically that with a PowerPC CPU shoehorned on it, because these were the first Power Macs. And you could lump the 6200 and 6300 into that same boat, because they were basically the same machine. These 5200s were the 5000s were the all-in-one, where the 6000s were built into, at the time it was a desktop. You may have been able to get them in tower form factors, I don't know. I know the later 6400, you certainly could. But again, for our purposes, it doesn't really matter. This one, you can see, is not in the world's best condition, but it's not too bad. At least not for someone like this. The plastics that these things are made out of, being as though it's not the early 1990s anymore, is very brittle, and so shipping these usually results in this. In fact, I'm kind of amazed that this showed up in as good a shape as it did. But this design, these were used in the classrooms for most of the time that I was in the lower grades of elementary school, I think until 5th grade. These were, no, I'm sorry. Yes, no, it would have been the year that I started 5th grade. They replaced the iMacs in the computer lab with compact Presario things that really were not worth having. I don't even know where they got them from, because these systems would have had to have been completely obsolete even by the time we got them, because remember, they're Windows 95 machines, and we were talking about like the year 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. So well past their use by date, weren't very reliable. They got replaced with Dell Optiplex machines not too long after they were put in. And then those ended up getting replaced with Windows XP machines when I guess the budget finally allowed for it. Take a look here. There's the serial number, manufacturing date. It's not that much younger than me. 6/22 of 1996. Presumably production run B-1, production line B-1 at 3:34 p.m. I'll have to look. I wonder if this thing was made at 3:30 on a Friday. Anyway, if we take a look here, it looks like the knockout plug is off of that. That probably would have been a modem originally. There's Ethernet, so this does have Ethernet on it. Of course, you got your speaker output, even though it's got built-in speakers, and microphone in, even though, again, it's also got a built-in microphone, which is something that I had forgotten about. But then again, it makes sense. The LC does too. I hope I can get that disc back and didn't damage it, because I'm kind of going to need it here in a minute for this. I'll explain why. This does still have SCSI, but at the very least, the hard drive is not SCSI anymore. I think the optical drive is. Modem connection, Apple serial connection, and a single ADB port. Now, the problem with this machine, I'm actually going to have to get a different keyboard because this only has one ADB port, and this keyboard does not actually have an ADB pass-through on it. Well, maybe it does. Oh yeah, it does. It's just not in the place where I was expecting to see it. But somebody, I think the RAM was upgraded, but I don't remember because I don't remember what this came with stock. Go ahead, I'll get some closer look at some of this damage. This isn't too bad here, but you can see that this is all cracked up. Not very good there. I think the screw there is still holding, but I'm not 100% sure. That's still intact. And then we come over here, and this is where it must have taken the hit. At least the big hit must have been right there. And then that's kind of popping off a little bit. I don't think I'm going to be able to fix that. This screw hole I know that's broken. Now even the top here is a little broken up too. You can kind of see that there. But there's not really much that the seller could have done better. This thing looked like it would have. It was packaged like it was ready to get thrown back in time and used in World War II as a housing for a nuclear bomb. Somebody has fitted this with an 80 gigabyte hard drive. And I'm here to tell you that that is not going to stay in here. It's got no place in a system like this. So I'm going to replace it. I've got a 6.4 sitting around somewhere that I'm going to try and hope that it will work. That I picked up for cheap just because it was there and I was kind of surprised that it was there. But that means I'll need to install an operating system. Now, somebody sees something like this and their first thing that they'll probably say is, oh, that's new enough, you can put OS 9 on that. Okay, plugged it in now, everything is connected. Let me show you why you do not install OS 9 on a Power Mac 5200. The hard drive spin up, and the unique startup chime. There's the CRT kicking in. This is normally not this wobbly. I've got it sitting on top of something right now. But it took it almost a minute to get to this point. But the minute and a half mark, it's finally starting to load extensions. Okay, we're about 2 minutes in now. I'll pop up a message about the date and time not being set. Check how long it takes to pop up this message box. Oh, I was using that as a mouse pad. Put that back. It's one of these ADB mouse 2s, and these don't tend to work very well on many surfaces. Alright, that message should disappear on its own. I don't necessarily have to clear it. In fact, I might not even be able to, but there we go. Okay, we're about 3 minutes in. We've finally gotten to a point where we have a desktop. Actually, right there. Now it's fully loaded. We'll take a look here. Look how long it took to do that. Huh. 256 color. It's got a weird maximum resolution of 832 by 624. I think that's a Mac resolution. An Apple one. Check out about this computer. You can see that this is running OS 9.0 with 32 megabytes of memory. So, like I said, this is a fresh installation, so there's nothing really on here. You try and open up an application, like Internet Explorer. See how long that takes to load. It's not going to load this. So we'll just hit stop. So, yeah. Not too bad, I suppose, once it's actually booted. But it's just not a fast experience. So, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to replace the hard drive with a more appropriate hard drive. And I'm going to install macOS 8.1 on this. Okay, I'm going to correct myself. It's an 8.4, not a 6.4. So it's a little bit larger than I'd like to put in this, but it's not going to matter for the sake of this anyway. I'm not really sure what would plug in there. You can see right there, there's your processor direct slot right there. And that, I presume, is where the modem would go. And then here's your hard drive cage, and that looks a little busted, doesn't it? I'm not 100% sure how that's supposed to come out of there. So, looks like I'm going to have to do some investigating on that, because I believe that it will have to come out of there. But you can see it's pretty busted up. I don't know if I'm putting this on backwards or not. This is how it came out on the other drive, which is now sitting over there. So it's how I'm going to put it back. Okay, here's the new drive. Now, I am going to go ahead and plug this in and power it up and just make sure that the drive actually powers up. It's not stuck or anything like that. I don't know what made that noise. That was the actual power Mac that just went pop. I don't see any smoke. Still chimes. I hear the drive. That was a little concerning there for a second, but it must have just moved off of something. I hear the drive. So you should get a blinking question mark here. Let me get the CD-ROM here. Okay, let's see if it boosts the CD. Or if I'm going to need to find a boot floppy. Not looking promising so far. Okay, that's more promising. A little bit anyway. I had to grab a different disc. It did not like the disc I was using. Which, in fairness, was actually a burn disc. It was a rewritable. So I suppose that kind of makes sense. You might not be out of the woods yet. Because this disc is not in great shape. So, hopefully it will work. Really hopeful that it will work. It almost has to, because I don't want to, I don't want to have to put that old drive back in there, you know? much rather have this more period correct drive, or at least closer to period correct. I'd like a smaller drive, and I might see if I can find one later. Okay, well, what just happened? I had the disk on the desktop for a second, and then it disappeared. Why did it disappear? Is it still loading? Now it seems to have stopped. Oh, here comes something. Did the Finder crash? Maybe the Finder crashed. I don't know. This thing is a little on the strange side. Okay. Disk Tools images. Those folders are kind of small. Make Disk Tools floppies? No, I don't want that. Utilities. Drive setup should be under here. Yep, there it is. We'll go ahead and we'll load that, because I'm going to have to format this drive, because it was in a PC, almost certainly before this. Searching for drives. Please find it. Yeah, there we go. Not initialized. This disk can still be initialized. Good. So, one partition. Can I change the name of it? I can't change the name of it. We'll do that. Sure. We'll go ahead and we'll initialize that. And we'll see how long that takes. Okay. Close that. We should now be able to install Mac OS 8.1. So we'll continue. Install to this. Looks good to me. Performa clean installation is unchecked. Read that very carefully. Definitely read that very carefully as well. So, let's see. What are we going to install? And install Quick Draws. We'll install the text-to-speech as well. That should be good, at least to start with. That was a quick check. Updating disk drivers. Kind of surprised it has to do that. That's a fresh initialization. Now, we should install, or we should at least begin the install. For the hard drive, and my camera, my cell phone, is running out of batteries. So, I'll come back once it's charged, and once this has done what it needs to do. Well, that's nice. Okay, can I skip that? I don't know what that was. Hopefully it wasn't important. Okay, there's definitely some errors during install on this. But I'm going to go ahead and reboot. Although this, let me see if I can eject this. Nope, can't eject this. So I'll just hit reboot. We'll see if it'll actually start up to whatever's on the hard drive. If anything good is on the hard drive. And then I'll have to do some cleanup, some settings adjustments. I'll have to put that back cover back on. Yeah, this should be OS 8. Which I don't have a whole lot of experience with. 8.1, I should say. which, yes, I realize still supported the 68K CPUs, so it's not like a PowerPC release or anything like that, but I certainly trust it more than I trust one of those PowerPC only releases, because at the base of it all, this is a Motorola 68K machine. It's a 68040, just with a PowerPC processor shoehorned onto it. So, see if it'll actually boot. I'll have to figure out a battery. This thing has a lithium pack, not a lithium pack, an alkaline pack. One of those 4.5 volt alkaline batteries. So, it should in theory be a little bit easier to deal with. Now, of course, it's got to rebuild the desktop file. Well, those 3.6 volt lithium batteries are still around. I just don't like them very much because when they fail, they tend to blow up rather violently. And I would prefer that not happen to anything. So I have to check the Classic over there in the SE and make sure that they've got no batteries in them. I had a Macintosh 2 that I know has batteries in it, but I clipped those out. So I don't have to worry about that. And I have to replace those in the Macintosh 2 because that won't start without dead batteries. So, or that won't start without good batteries, I guess. So you can see, even with this, which is a much more apt version of the macOS, I think these ship with 7.6, maybe 7.5.5. But even with a more apt version of the macOS, it's still extremely slow. Ooh, setup assistant. Well, let's go through this information, I guess. One other thing I'll note about this is that it smells like it's getting warm. And it is definitely getting warm. I was kind of surprised by that, because the Performa didn't, or sorry, the Performa, they're both Performas. But the 550 didn't do that. So I almost wondered if this doesn't have a fan in it, and it's just using natural convection. It is also a different CRT. This is a Shadow Mask Delta Gun picture tube, as opposed to that, which has a Trinitron in it. So there is a difference there, but I didn't think it would be that much of a difference that this thing would put out so much more heat. But I've reinstalled the back cover. Looks nice once again. I've also adjusted the tilt. So we'll go ahead and we'll take it from the top. Still definitely nobody's idea of a speed demon, but that's far better than the 3 minutes that it took previously. Less than half the time. So I have made customizations to this. You can see it's also using up far less memory. I wonder if I could turn that virtual memory off if it's actually needed. I don't think it really is. I could probably turn the virtual memory off. Well, yeah, I can increase it. Quite high, actually. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just turn it off. There's no real reason to have it on. So I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. Kind of surprised it turns everything off on a restart like that. Yeah, it's very neat to see one of these in person again, even if it's quite a bit larger than I remember it being. So, quite a bit larger than I remember it being. I guess in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that large. It's about the size of a CRT. About a 13. I don't remember what size the monitor actually is. It's probably more like a 14-inch CRT. That's basically what it is. It's just got, it's all in one instead of two separate pieces. But I was thinking that it was more comparable to size to the compact Mac. And that the compact Macs were a lot smaller than they were, but compact Macs are pretty small. Again, I find myself kind of surprised that this doesn't seem to have a control strip. I'm not even really sure where that option would be, but I don't see it under here. It's not this. This is something else, which now I'm going to have to wait for it to open. Yeah, I thought that there was a control strip on this, but I guess evidently I am wrong. See what the info says. Oh, browser launcher. It's configured for Netscape. I'm kind of surprised to see that. Because for a while the default was Internet Explorer because Microsoft threatened to discontinue Office for Mac if they didn't bundle IE with the Mac OS. Because, you know, that's totally not what's the word I'm looking for? That didn't really work, did it? Not anti-competitive. That's the word I'm looking for. So, anyway. Netscape 3 of some description or another. So, again, we got a start here. Remains to be seen what all I do end up really doing with this. But it's nice to have one of these because they're certainly not getting any easier to find. And they're certainly also, as a result of that, not getting any cheaper either. This one was quite cheap. Still way more than I would like to sink into a classic Macintosh that I'm not going to be using on a day-to-day basis. But far below market value, we'll put it that way. For a while, these things are basically worthless. Because you could find them on every street corner. But time and mandatory recycling has kind of put a crimp in that. Just the same as it is with many PC-related items. If you tried to price out an IBM PS2 lately, holy crap. And the AT and older aren't getting any easier to find either, and any cheaper. They're not getting any younger. Systems like this need all kinds of repairs. And there'll probably be a time when this will get to the point where it will need to have capacitors redone and other things like that. I'm surprised it's not at that point already. But hopefully it stays working for a good long while. It and the Performa 550 over there, which actually is a Macintosh TV now. It's got a Macintosh TV logic board in it. Because that actually works, unlike the Performa board that I've got sitting around here somewhere. That doesn't work. I'll have to figure out what's wrong with it. But that's that for this. So stay tuned. There will probably be videos in the future of this thing running software I might even put it on my network, do some things with it, put it on the internet, and see what can be done with something like this. The answer is going to be not very much, because it's just not really up to it. And it's a PowerPC system. But you can probably still do some pretty interesting things with these. There's some neat software out there. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below.